The cottage I live in sits in a small clearing surrounded by large old trees. They're the kind that are so big your hands wouldn't touch if you were somehow able to duplicate yourself and hug it from opposite sides. I love them. They're my sentinels, silent, rigid bodies reaching high into the sky with a countless number of branching, thinning arms. Patient observers standing tall against anything thrown at them. Wind, thunder, torrential downpours. In the dusk, they send long black shadows running along the ground, and in the early morning, dappled light breaks through the gaps between their leaves. The cottage is a small, one-story house. The only bathroom connects to my bedroom. The kitchen is spacious enough and has a walk-in pantry, and there's 2 rooms, one along the hall and one at the end of it. I use the one at the end of the hall as an office of sorts. The other holds a couch, a TV, though there isn't much signal out here, and a load of still-packed boxes from my initial move. It's been years at this point, and I've started using them as stands instead of unpacking them. Next to the kitchen is a screen door that leads out into an area that's been fenced off. The wire and poles are rusted, but they still stand, so I haven't really bothered to replace them. It was meant to be a garden, but when I bought this place, the area had been overgrown. More jungle than a place to grow fruits and vegetables. The first thing I planted after I weeded and cut and tilled the dirt were tomatoes. A row of them along the fence. Now I regret planting so many. Every year, more tomatoes than I know what to do with ripen. I try not to let them fall off and rot. I've thought about selling them. Next, I planted a few blueberry plants, and under them, strawberries. The strawberries never really took, but they do make flowers every year despite not bearing fruit. They're cute little things. Kind of looks like an egg in a frying pan. White petals ringing out a bright yellow center. The blueberries are plentiful as well. Though I love blueberries, and so the sometimes bloated harvests never go to waste. I make preserves and the blueberries into recipes I look up online. I could eat them in any form forever. I planted a peach tree and a pecan tree, but neither of them are big enough to be productive. The peach tries to make peaches, but they always come out small and lumpy. I eat them, but there's never enough to really do anything with them. I've always wanted to live somewhere that's quiet. You could argue that the middle of nowhere is hardly quiet, and you'd be right. Crickets sing and cicadas cry. The air is constantly buzzing with the voices of living things. But it's the kind of loud that soothes me. It's peaceful. It's relaxing. Or it was. For a little while. There is a slight catch to all of the comfort. Part of the universe's mechanics is that everything is trying to find equilibrium. Everything wants to even out into neutrality. All that peace and quiet is balanced out by a little bit of chaos that rears its head every so often. I noticed the energy that seemed to crackle in the air when the real estate agent took me on a tour of the surrounding land and then the house. I didn't think anything of it, and that was my mistake. Despite this place's little quirk, I wouldn't choose to live anywhere else. I enjoy the solitude, the fresh air. I can sit on my porch in the morning and listen to birdsong. However, that does not mean I am never annoyed at my circumstances. Case in point, last night and the events from this morning. A light show, a sign that a rift is opening up, flashed behind the dark pillars of trees. It changed from mint to hot pink to midnight, and then egg yolk, then fuchsia, and finally to pulsing lilac. This happens often enough that I threw a pillow over my eyes and ignored it. I knew what was coming, what this all meant, but I couldn't be bothered. As I drifted back off to sleep, I heard the crackle of energy and high-pitched zing of the rift closing once more. I really wish I hadn't ignored the lights because it was Shea who came stumbling through the portal. Shea, the big boss, the one that Oren and Dryle report to, the one that no one can look at directly. She was used to getting her way, and she acted like it. I don't like surprises. It's my preference to greet whoever enters after the light show. That way I can get a look at them and prepare myself for their appearance. Oren is the easiest to look at. He's the most human-like, though I'm never not aware of the fact that he has 7 fingers on each hand and a mouth that stretches all the way up to his temples. If he were to open his mouth all the way, his face hinges upward like a chute cover. The rest don't have appearances that are easy to accept. They look familiar, but wrong. I see them often enough that I can usually suppress the instinctual jolt that laying my eyes on them always brings around. There's something about Shea, though, that overrides my efforts. I flinch when her gaze flicks over to me and I can't hold eye contact. She is the one thing that I would prefer to only ever have to see once as the second best alternative to never at all. I couldn't be given even that much. I awoke to the sound of muffled movement. Remembering the lights from the night before, I didn't bother to get dressed as I hauled myself out of bed and draped a blanket over my shoulders. Walking into the kitchen, Shea's form was hidden behind the open fridge door. I looked away when it smacked shut. I didn't think about how she got in. I stopped trying to ask her years ago. Shea had her ways, and that was as much as I could get out of her. I didn't really understand them. I don't think I was ever meant to. After all, she's not from this world. She's not even of this universe. None of the travelers that come from the light are. "You're out of milk," Shea said. Her voice was deep and resonant, lower than any baritone that I'd ever heard. It was the kind of sound which rattled through you and settled into your ribs like a second heartbeat. The silence that followed was filled with the resonation of her voice. I knew her mouth didn't move as she spoke. Instead, it floated up from the slits lining her back like gills. Though that's not what they are. They twitch and pulse as she pushes air out of them to make sounds. Then I heard the sound of her licking something off her fingers and claws. I cringed. Shea hummed thoughtfully. "And butter," she added. I finally mustered a look at her. Her skin was gray and dabbled with white and sky blue. The trail of long, coarse hair started from her head and traveled down her back, continuing along the ridge of a long, coiled tail. Ugh. Her ears were just holes in the side of her head, pulsing open and closed. "What are you doing here?" I asked, tightening the blanket around me as if it might be able to protect me if Shea got it in her head to attack me. "Don't worry your little head," Shea hummed and leaned against the counter. She was smiling. Or at the very least, trying to make the best approximation of a smile. Her face wasn't really built for it. Her skin pinched and stretched as muscles went against their typical use. Instead, she just looked like she was snarling. I almost appreciated her effort to give me a human gesture. On her, though, it just seemed like a mockery. "I won't be here long, just needed to stop at a checkpoint." Her blue tongue darted out of a broad snout and licked residue out from under her claw. "Is that what this place?" "My home," I thought as I gestured to the space we both stood in. "Is?" I crossed my arms. It's generally not a great idea to piss off a creature that could thoroughly turn you into neat little cold-cut slices, but I trusted Shea's self-control enough to snark. Shea didn't like leaving a trail or a mess. Killing me would create both. The last thing she needed was the CCU catching a whiff of her scent. "What would you call it?" Her pale blue eyes rolled to meet mine. I looked away. The entire impulse had me turning my back to her. Not something you should usually do when faced with a predator. I trained my eyes to the window. Outside, the trees stood tall against a carpet of green grass. If I unfocused my eyes, her reflection would come into view. That way I could almost look at her. I wouldn't call a place I lived in for almost 2 years a checkpoint, I responded. I remember the day I came home and he was gone. The place had felt so empty the days following. And again, I apologize. She wasn't sorry. I could hear it in her voice. I needed Cran to stay put. You know how tricky this can get. I never asked to be part of this, I wanted to say. Instead, I didn't say anything at all. Shea shifted from one foot to the other, then finally got out of my kitchen. I felt her air as she passed me. It was like the essence of a hurricane came with them. Dark, foreboding. It washed over me like cold water. Goosebumps prickled around my arms, blood roared in my ears. My heart fluttered wildly in my chest, straining, afraid, slamming itself against the constraints of its cage. And then it stopped. She was past me. Shea paused at the front door, her fingers on the knob. A residue of oil smudged the tiny surface. One peculiar thing about Shea was that she always snuck her way in, but going out, she always used the front door. She spared me a look, and then said, "You are also out of chicken," and promptly left. I sighed because I knew I had bought some yesterday. Thank you so much for listening to my narration of this wonderful story. Don't forget to support the author, which I have linked in the description, as well as the original story. And I just want to give a quick shout out to my patrons, Scott, Old Penguin, Ellie Hutmeyer, Mr. Sankofa, Austin My Love, Rinku Star, William Hartley, Cupcake Hips, Alonzo, Icy Narrates, Jesse Hartley, Eric Cifuentes, Lawrence Wallen, and Melissa Perez. I also try to link a different charity or a different cause every month and maybe a little more. So don't forget to check out the description to support the author of the story you just listened to and to maybe help somebody else out, even if it's just $1. As always, if you guys have a prayer request, please let me know in the comments, shoot me a message on Discord. I would love to know how I can be praying for you. Thank you guys so much. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.